26 years ago, Flashpoint first appeared on Detroit television. Today, a celebration. A gathering of the original and long-running Flashpoint family, and a look to its immediate future. Today is Sunday, December 15th, 2024, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. I'm so very glad you're with us for my final broadcast of this program that has brought me so much satisfaction, so many challenges, and so much to chew on since its debut in 1998. My final newscast was Friday evening at 6 p.m., and that was tough enough to leave, but this program has long been such a personal passion project of mine. I created Flashpoint at KFOR-TV, the NBC affiliate in Oklahoma City, and shortly after arriving in Detroit, the general manager here, Alan Frank, started talking to me about bringing the concept to Motown. This 30 minutes has been such a luxury for me, though truth be told, the most common complaint over the years about this broadcast is that it needed to be an hour long. Yes, it has always seemed that I run out of time before I run out of questions or topics. And I imagine that'll be the case this morning, too. Over the years, my guests have run the gamut from presidents to comedians, conversations on race and culture with Russell Simmons, to a song about Al Kaline from Jeff Daniels that ended up being taken into the collection at the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. How about that? We've hosted a lot of political debates, some of which were considered to be pivotal in the eventual outcome of the race. But more than anything, I hope we brought some order to a political world that can so often seem unruly. This morning, yes, we'll discuss a few of the big political topics of the week, but my roundtable today made up of some of the original foundational pieces of the program, and we will also talk about what's next for this program. And as I've said hundreds of times before, it's all today on Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to the inaugural edition of Flashpoint, our monthly forum on issues that are important to all of us. We're glad you're with us. Stay with us. I don't know who the host was, but it's the same show. It was monthly when Flashpoint first started more than 26 years ago. And I am so delighted to have with me this foundational group who has been with me for so much of it. In fact, we didn't have a table big enough for everybody because clearly there are some other people who could have been here as well. But with me this morning, Mario Morrow, who was on that very first program.
You're dating me.
Both of us, right? Nolan Finley from the Detroit News. Stephen Henderson, Pulitzer Prize winning host of, well, now you
right? Well, of what?
American Black Journal. American Black Journal. Of course you're still doing that, yes. The pollster and analyst who has taught me so much over the years about Michigan politics, Steve Mitchell, and Debbie Dingle, whose time on Flashpoint predates her time in Congress by quite a bit. But I'm really thrilled you guys are all here. And we're going to get to some Flashpoint thoughts and Flashpoint memories a little bit later on. But I want to start, as we always do around here, with some of the news of the week. Nolan, there's this assassination that we saw of the CEO of the largest health insurer in America has started such an amazing response in so many different directions. Yeah. I did my best a couple of times with people that I interviewed in this election cycle to get them to talk about health care. Health care was not really bandied about much at all, and I was blown away because it feels to me like it's the one thing that we all really rely on as Americans, and yet I didn't feel like it was on the front burner at all.
And it's something we can't get right. I mean, Obamacare was supposed to take care of all this, and it clearly hasn't, and so now we're in a situation.
But getting rid of it would be a disaster, wouldn't it?
In almost every direction you turn, you're facing a disaster. But what we're doing now isn't working. And so starting over with this and coming up with some sort of program where you focus on managing healthcare costs, which is have just gone out of control in this country. If you could focus first on healthcare costs and then on access, I think you can make some progress.
Debbie, 2016, maybe it was just the presence of Bernie Sanders at the time in the race, but it felt like we were having a pretty robust discussion about healthcare in America. What do you, is it talked about in the halls of Congress very much beyond, we talk about Medicare and Medicaid funding sometimes.
I did a
prescription medicine.
I did a bipartisan press conference with Buddy Carter and other colleagues
last week about how we need to do something about the pharmacy benefit managers, who are the only person they help are the people that are making money from trying to manage it. The fact of the matter is you guys aren't where I am, because if you're out on the grassroots listening to people every day, it is one of the issues.
It definitely is among
how
the
much
citizenry.
their medicine costs. If you're sick, how many people just can't go to the doctor because they're afraid they won't even be able to afford the treatment? It is a major issue, and the one thing that I do think there is bipartisan agreement on is that we have to do something about the cost of people's medicine.
Stephen, it seems to me that the measure of where we are on this is that a lot of people online have elevated this gunman or suspect in the case to a folk hero.
Yeah, I mean, that's a strange dynamic. And I heard someone talking this week about, former eras where assassinations were more common, and whether because we're in such a kind of disruptive time that this is a signal that kind of behavior is coming back. I think that's the worry. This was not somebody who seems like he would be given to violence, given his background. Yep. At the same time, there's a lot more violence now than there was of this kind than there used to be. So I think the worry has to be that we're headed to something maybe much darker than we've been experiencing.
Steve, I remember reading an article about 15 years ago by a leading conservative that suggested that conservatives were the one who were eventually going to lead America to universal health care because it was the fiscally responsible thing to do. We spend more on health care than any other country in the world, but we do not get the best outcomes. It's astonishing what we spend versus what we get out of the system. Where do you think the conservatives in America would like to take health care? By continuing to rely on for-profit insurers?
Well, look, I think if you take a look at where we are today as opposed to where we were, I opposed Obamacare. Obamacare has done a lot of good. It has done far more good than bad. It has helped save millions of lives across this country and in this state. And so I've become a strong supporter of it. I want to address one thing about healthcare CEOs. One of my lobbying clients for years has been the Michigan Association of Health Plans. And I've gotten to know these CEOs, and they care about providing good care for their people. This isn't the movie The Client back in the 1990s where they're trying to screw people. They want to do the best they can, but the cost of medications is so expensive that you can't provide the coverage, because if you did, the companies would become insolvent. I know one CEO who every day he'd walk into the parking garage and the guy that was there would never smile because he had poor teeth. He spent $10,000 to give that guy a new mouth. These guys are concerned, and they're good people, and they're getting vilified when they should be lionized.
Well, but these healthcare companies do make insane profits, don't they?
Yes, they do, and they have a right to make profits, because every company should make a profit. But on the other hand, the private sector, I think, does a better job of managing things. Go to England, go to other countries where they have nationalized health care, and you can't get a doctor, you can't get a specialist, and you're going to wish you were back in America.
Better health outcomes, though.
Much better health outcomes.
In all those countries, they seem to be. What are your thoughts, Warren?
I'm a strong supporter of universal health care. Obamacare, I was very surprised to hear Steve say that he was a supporter now and wasn't at first. But now they're putting up wanted posters for CEOs all over the country of these healthcare companies. They make a ton of money. People are not happy that they can't get coverage, but yet they look at the compensation packages of these CEOs and top executives, of the amount of money that they're making, and yet people can't get health care coverage for themselves or their families. I think this is a time to have this discussion again in Congress for
The first person to introduce universal health care
That's
was
what I'm
John
talking
Dingell
about.
Sr. John Dingell carried that tradition, and
That's what
I
I'm
still
talking
am.
about.
Every single year that he was in office.
And he
And
sure
I
did.
now do it now, and I made a death promise to John Dingell. I'd never stop.
He took a
this
lot of
fight.
heat for that. But
So
we
need,
should.
if you're sick in this country, you should be able to go to the doctor, get the treatment that you need, and afford your medicine. That
Well, I've
is
got
what
good
I'll
news
never
for you
stop.
all. The new president has concepts of a plan. to solve the healthcare crisis. So
Nothing
we're all
fleshed out
fine.
just yet. But Nolan, when people say to me, I don't want a government bureaucrat in charge of my health care, I always think, well, right now you have a for-profit insurance company in charge of your health care. That's a wash at best, isn't it?
Well, depends. I mean, if you look at the record of government-run programs, I think there's probably
We have the best military in the
mean-
world. That's a government-run system. Why can't we have the best health care in the
how
world?
much does it waste every year?
Well, like similarly though, to be honest with you, I don't care how much my military costs if it's the best one in the world. It's keeping me safe. I want the same thing out of my health care.
it could do the things it's doing at a lot more efficiency and a lot less cost, and I assume Pete Hexeth will tackle that when he gets in. But
So you're
you know,
defending
we've
him?
got.
You think he's a good nominee?
Of course I don't. But I mean, we've got to start rebuilding this system in a way where we make it as efficient as possible, and the people who need care get care. You know, but you know, we also have to start thinking about health care as part of the cost of living. Maybe the insurance company shouldn't have to pay for everything. We
We
can
got to
keep our
start talking
premiums
about it
down.
and start making things happen. You know, follow Debbie Dingell's lead in Washington, and let's just make this thing happen.
I got to make something happen by getting to a break here, but I will. Nobody should be going into bankruptcy because they get sick. I mean, that's just too many
100%.
lives have been. Yeah, I think we agree on that. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Back with more on my final Flashpoint on Local 4 right after this. Welcome back. Let's talk a little bit about Flashpoint and what the experience has been like for you all. I will again mention there are a number of other people who could be here who've been such an important part of this program. Adolph Mongo, Portia Roberson, I could go on and on, Richard Zuba, Sheila Cockrell. Also some people who are no longer with us who were a very important part of this program, people like Paul Welday, Brooks Patterson, and Marlo Stoudemire, who was the first friend that I lost in the pandemic. But let me let you all talk. Mario, as the first guest on Flashpoint, or my first sidekick, give me your thoughts.
Well, first of all, it was exciting to get it started. You were magnificent as it relates to just bringing this into Michigan, if you will, because everyone throughout the state watched the show. But I think my most memorable episode was the one after I had predicted I think Gil Hill was going to win the election. And Kwame won. So I brought in, I think the first prop for the entire Flashpoint, I brought in a chicken because I couldn't find a crow. And I put it out and said, okay, here you go. I'm going to eat this chicken.
Chicken instead of crow. That's really good.
That got me a lot of comments, a lot of calls, and
really
people
funny.
appreciated me just, ugh.
It's really good. Debbie, give me your thoughts here. Same thing. You were very early on the program.
But Stephen, I love Stephen. He knows it. But I had a lot of great moments with Nolan. Well,
Yes.
not.
Yes.
But we always
Because you
were
agree on
civil.
so much.
We agree on so much, but we were civil. I think that we need to remember that this is a group that believes in civility and disagreeing
Right.
Absolutely.
agreeably, and we need to find a way to bring that more into the present. But obviously, my 2016 prediction, where I told Stephen Hillary Clinton wasn't going to win, and he thought that I was very wrong. So I tried to talk him out of a headline. But that is one of the most memorable. He asked me for memorable.
completely copped to being wrong.
I need to bring you that
then, and I
chicken.
was wrong like a month ago, too. I said, Donald Trump wouldn't win Michigan this time either.
This speaks well of the brain trust that I've assembled over the years.
Well, you had
Stephen.
somebody else here who said we have a problem in Michigan.
That's exactly right. Give me your thoughts, Stephen.
Yeah, I came on this show the first time soon after I came home from Washington, and I was used to the sort of kind of talk shows there and how they approach things, and I didn't know anything about local television. And Devin, you have done such a fantastic job of bringing not just civil, but intelligent and probing conversation to these issues on a local level. I can't think of another city that I go to and I watch local television and see a show quite like this. It is comparable to the things that I remember from being in D.C., so you deserve an enormous amount of credit.
And I'm very
for that.
grateful for that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nolan?
Well, I mean, you used to tape this show in the evenings.
Yes.
And so Steve and I would show up. First thing Devin would ask is, you didn't stop across the street for a bourbon.
That never happened, by the way.
Sometimes you did, sometimes you didn't.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one.
I remember I was on once, this is years ago, you had a Republican candidate for top state office. I won't mention the name, but it was during that period when the state legislature, the Republican-controlled state legislature, had suspended some women or censored some women for shouting vagina in the in the legislative chamber. And you asked this woman whether she thought that was appropriate, and she said, well, we don't use that word in our house. And I was just about to ask, what word do you use? When I looked up and saw Devin's face going,
No, don't go there. It wasn't going anyplace good. It wasn't going anyplace good. Steve Mitchell, how about you?
It was actually in the green room. The Speaker of the House was of one party, the same party as the governor, and the Majority Leader was of the other party. And the Majority Leader and the Speaker were discussing an issue, and the Majority Leader said, well, we're not sure that we can trust the governor. And the Speaker, who was the same party as the governor, said, see, that's the difference between Republicans and Democrats. We know we can't trust the governor.
I've always wished that we had cameras and microphones set up in the green room and rolling during the commercial breaks. Speaking of having one for the show, let's have one during the show. Jamie Walters, the longtime producer of Flashpoint, has come back today to be our server.
Oh my goodness.
Because I had kept you all from breakfast on Sunday mornings.
Jamie King, good to see you.
Thank you, dear. Let's just, we've got my very favorite Bloody Mary in the world is from Vivio's, and that is where these in Eastern Market.
Yeah.
So we'll
Thank you very
just
much.
tilt these around here since I've mixed up a lot of brunches for you all over the years. But I am so indebted to all of you for helping. I've always had my little joke that I wanted Flashpoint to adjust the brightness on your television. And I'll be honest, when I first started the program, Debbie will remember this, I think sometimes I leaned a little too much into letting people really just go at loggerheads and yelling at each other across the table. And these are obviously you are all very passionate people about what you believe in. But I ended up fortunately coming around to understanding that there's a lot more value in providing light than heat. And so I'm really grateful for you all having been on that journey with me all this time. So
Job well done.
It's been really, really fun.
The real memory is the tremendous job you have done. And I'm not blowing smoke up your skirt now because I need to, you're going. But you have been extraordinary, and it has been a real honor and a pleasure to be on the show with you and with this same gang here who are just tremendous people.
Well,
thank you.
I think we'd all say you've made a difference in our lives, and we appreciate it.
I've learned so much from you and this entire.
Well, that's the selfish part of this is that every Sunday morning I feel like I learn an awful lot, and that's what I've really tried to. I figure if I'm learning something, maybe some other people are learning some things too. And as I mentioned before, in fact, there was a special the other night that we mentioned this in. My hate mail around this program, fortunately, not always a ton, but when I get it, it has always run 50-50. Half the people think that I'm just this ridiculous conservative that Channel 4 gives a pulpit to every Sunday morning, and the other half can't believe a liberal like me is allowed to run wild. And I think I've always seen that was a pretty good sign. So cheers to you all. Thanks so much for being here. We'll take a quick break and we'll talk about where Flashpoint goes from here. I'm very happy about my next guest. Stay with us. This is Flashpoint on Local 4. Welcome back. I have had people say to me, with this being my sign-off week, does that mean there's not going to be a Flashpoint next week? Well, I'm happy to report there will be a Flashpoint next week, and it's going to be hosted by the only person that I would hand the reins to, and it's Christy McDonald.
That's really, that's beautiful to hear. And it's kind of surreal to be sitting here in this capacity. You and I have been friends for a long time. Before I came here to Channel 4. I was doing a political analysis show on PBS for 10 years. And so we would go back and forth about all of the issues of the day. So to be able to sit here with a program that you've created is really, it's humbling.
You and I, for so many years, would be together at Mackinac sorting out all of the world's problems. You know.
And it would only take a couple hours, right? We'd walk by and we'd be like, we've done it.
If only we had a magic wand.
Yeah.
But I am, I'm not only, you know, a member of the Christy McDonald fan club. I think I'm the founder and president. And you and I both really, I think, have always been very simpatico about believing in neutral journalism for a start, that that's a real thing and can be accomplished, but also that this importance of thoughtful, intelligent conversation is too often lacking.
Yeah,
right?
that goes beyond the first 2 or 3 questions, right? And that's sometimes where people can get caught up. So for me, it's conversation and then leading to the context, the analysis of everything, and the understanding, and to be able to sit back, step back, give people voice to be able to explain, and then let the debate happen within a way that we can all understand, or maybe walk away saying, I didn't think of it that way, but I'm glad I heard from multiple voices, and it made me think about something in a different way.
Right,
and I think if we have a space for these types of conversations, what you created so many years ago with Flashpoint, to be able to continue that and to have a space for people to bring those conversations, it's an honor to be able to carry it on.
Well, the other thing that you and I have in common is we never seem to stop being curious. We always run out of time before we run out of questions.
Exactly.
And that's a funny thing. Sometimes I meet people who want to go into journalism, and that's not really part of their makeup, which I think is like, that's foundational. If you want to be a journalist, you just really need to be so curious about the world around you.
To me, it's curiosity, but my other big hallmark is being a listener.
Yes,
so,
another
you can
very
have,
overlooked
Exactly.
skill.
You can have all of the questions lined up in your mind, but if you don't all of a sudden then sit and listen to what that person is telling you, and then bring it into everything that you've done the research on, and then the curiosity of, but what if this? Just picking up on something you said. So listening will always be a hallmark here. And my notes actually will be much bigger than this
I never have very much, I know.
little folder.
Just
I'm
little
always
words.
like, what are the notes there? Sometimes I have a binder. Devin always rolls up with like a Diet Coke and a
Just
teeny,
a bullet
teeny
point.
thing. Exactly.
But the other things, we got about a minute left, but the other thing is that I was never going to be able to time my way out of this business, because there was always something. There's always another big event.
Exactly.
You're coming in with a change in the White House,
what a year.
a shift in Lansing. I mean, yes, you have a veritable buffet in front of you.
And I also think one of the most pivotal mayoral races in Detroit that we're going to see as well. So this will always be the place to have those conversations about the most important things that are happening to us here in Michigan, and of course how that impacts the rest of the country. But man, when we get hyper-local, which is what we will do here on Flashpoint, as always, carrying on the tradition that you started, my friend.
I'm so thrilled that you're going to be here. Thanks so much. Christy McDonald taking over Flashpoint next week. That's going to do it for us this morning. That's going to do it for me for this last 30 years or so. But thanks so much for being here, because you have made this program what it is. I've never said it was going to be the most watched program, but I wanted the right people watching it, and that's you. Thanks so much for being here. Christy's back next week with Flashpoint.